and here or there they play their hand and change the course of things. And then my question for Paul was if he knows anything about the picture NASA supposedly has about a crystal skull on the moon.
No. I do know, based on what the Chinese have reported, at least Dr. Kang, of footprint that was found on the moon by Americans. And I guess Chinese intelligence got that information, and of a skeleton that was discovered on the moon. That's all I know.
Not to be confused with the skeleton that was supposedly found on Mars?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm talking about the moon.
Okay, just checking. And then, and so you've never heard about a moon crystal skull?
No.
Okay, I hadn't either, actually. That's new to me. Eddie in El Paso, Texas, on the wildcard line on Coast to Coast AM for Paul Stonehill. Eddie?
Thank you for taking my call, gentlemen. Mr. Stonehill, it is beautiful to hear what you are saying.
Thank you.
And I have been given a message from what I have been mocked is an entity. There are 13 skulls. The center skull, if you are interested in talking to me, I would love to share my spirituality with you about where the center skull is located in Mexico.
Well, if you know where it is, why don't you go get it?
I was asked that same question when I called 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I said,
well,
I
it's
would never call again. But I cannot go and get it without infinite number strong as one within one.
I don't know what that means. Infinite number strong, one without...
As one within one. We are strong together. And Mr. Stonehill, thank you so much for confirming my energy and catching up to my energy every 3 days.
Okay. Go ahead, Paul. Do you have a comment on that?
No.
Okay. Let me get to, let's see, this is Wade in Alberta on Coast to Coast AM. Wade?
Hi there.
Hi, you're talking with Paul Stonehill. Go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Stonehill.
Yes.
I was curious as to where in the Soviet Union these UFOs have been sighted. Was it covering the whole country, or was it in a specific area?
Mostly the whole country, and I would say especially over areas of where they had secret military facilities or spaceports. Back in 1957, for example, when the space age began, when the Soviets started sending satellites into the sky, from the very first day, UFOs had been sighted over such secret facilities, and everywhere from the ancient times on. But especially during the Soviet period, there had been a lot of sightings. And I would say over such areas as the Chinese-Soviet border, Sino-Soviet border, the Soviet Far East, Central Russia, Moscow, even over the battlefields of World War II, there had been a lot of sightings.
Yeah, that's what I heard about the Second World War. It's similar to North America then. They've been seen everywhere.
Over nuclear power plants. I would say that there is maybe a preponderance of locality. I don't think you would see many of them over, faraway villages. But there are areas in the former Soviet Union and modern Russia where UFOs definitely tend to come to often.
Well, my instinct to go to the phones early has been proven right. Really good questions. Look forward to seeing more places where we'll go with Paul Stonehill, whose research is sort of specialized in international UFO sightings, in particular his work in Russia and in the Ukraine and other places of the former USSR. But we'll talk a little bit more, too, about the Nazi crystal skull pursuit. And we'll also take the show where you're going to take it with Paul Stonehill. And I'm quite curious about what stones have we left unturned. Coming up next on Coast to Coast AM, this is Ian Punnett. Enjoying this conversation quite a bit with Paul Stonehill, who's an international researcher, somebody who is well-versed both in foreign languages, but also a different perspective when it comes to reading the minds of foreign leaders, trying to understand why UFO reports come out the way they do in other countries versus how we get them here. Paul's research takes him into places that most American researchers would never think to go, and therefore he has some fairly unique stories, which we've heard many of tonight, and which we have many more left to go for this hour. I want to pick at the Crystal Skulls story a little bit more and the Nazis that Paul was researching. We'll do that next with your questions on Coast to Coast AM. This is Ian Punnett. Ryan is in Seattle. We'll get to him in just a second. Let me ask you about the Crystal Skulls, and maybe more specifically when it comes to the Nazis, their early experiments in aircraft. You mentioned the Nazis were kind of in pursuit of anything like the Crystal Skulls or the Spear of Destiny or anything that they thought would give them this sort of mystical, ritualistic edge over their enemies. Any thought, any proof anywhere that the Nazis had any type of extraterrestrial contact?
Rumors, but not proof itself. Rumors, right. And unsubstantiated at this point.
Yeah, I've heard those rumors too. I was just curious. And as far as the Russians are concerned, the Russians too have made some fairly big jumps in their nuclear program and in their aircraft program. Any thoughts about whether the Russians had any retrofitting or any technology that might have come from an outside source
2
like
points.
that?
In 1948, allegedly, in Kiev, the city I was born in, Ukraine, they had dug out again. It was done before, but it was put back. Ancient craft, a rocket-like object that contained incredible technology and Hindu inscriptions in the ancient language of India. And again, rumors too, but very interesting. But then also in early 1950s, according to Professor Burdakov, one of those who had revealed information about Stalin having documents about Roswell back in 1940s, and his analysis, how he got Soviet scientists to analyze them. Anyway, the same Professor Burdakov, who is still alive, one of the best scientific minds of Russia, he mentioned a story how in early 1950s, Soviet had something in their hands that they could not understand what it was, and it was like a microchip-like object. They described it, but they didn't know where it was. Where it came from, I don't know, but again, I go back to my hypothesis that they actually found out something during the excavations, archaeological excavations.
This is a totally inappropriate question, but I am curious, always curious about these things. Did you grow up eating chicken Kiev in Kiev? I mean, do they have chicken Kiev in Kiev?
No. They have other food. And,
yeah, but you've had it, right? You've had chicken Kiev?
Here, not in the Soviet Union.
But it's never, like, nobody in Kiev eats chicken Kiev.
No.
Isn't that weird?
Maybe today they do, but,
Yeah. It's probably an American hotel somewhere. Ryan is in Seattle on Coast to Coast AM for Paul Stonehill. Ryan?
Good evening.
Hello. Evening.
It's a pleasure to be on your program. I don't know if you guys heard, but yesterday there was a breaking story from the Romanian Ministry of Defense in which a MiG had an air collision. It was cruising along at high altitude in 2007, and 3 objects brushed up against the side, causing it to land in an emergency. They posted the video at the Romanian UFO network, and I was wondering if you guys heard about this, because I'm just trying to figure out what would be in the air that would be floating in the air. There was 3 of them that were tracked on radar, and they were not. The Romanian Ministry of Defense was unable to determine what they were after an investigation. And if anybody does a search on that and looks, and you can see the video, and there's 3 objects clearly, and it's a gun camera photo video that they have released.
You can see it on YouTube, by the way. If you want to just make it easy on yourself, go to YouTube and type in UFO hits Romanian fighter jet.
There's a site called RomanianUFONetwork.org or Rufon.org. I wonder if you heard of that, Paul.
No.
Paul?
No, I have not that story. I have not heard about this.
And if anybody wants to see a good